Hello, welcome to my channel. My name's Jenny, and I'm doing a little painting in my art journal that I made in the last video, and I'm actually going to accompany this painting with a little talk about how I set out to find my light, my inner light, after severe trauma. So it's about my pathway to healing. Um, I'm actually well on the way to becoming whole again, and I actually feel whole. So I'm, pretty much there, I think. Although, healing can be, um, it can be a lifelong thing. It can be something that takes a few years. It can be something that takes a few months. It just depends on the person. I feel I'm in a really good place now, um, but I'm not completely there yet. Last year in June, a friendship situationship that I was involved in came to a very abrupt, very, very nasty, narcissistic end. I was in this relationship for approximately 3 years, and certainly the first part of that time, uh, I didn't see any signs of what was to come, and that's usually how it works for narcissism. And but being the empath that I am, I've always been the type of person to believe that people are good until they show me otherwise. However, in this instance, I became quite involved in my emotions and my feelings for this person. And I loved him. I was very much in love with him. Well, I loved him dearly, probably on my way to being in love with this person. Um, and I didn't see any red flags in the beginning. I knew that he'd had a troubled background, and so any little things that I did see, I understood why he was the way he was. Having come from an abusive childhood myself, um, I had compassion, and um, and then as time went on, any other red flags that came up, I ignored because of my feelings for him, and that I had promised him that I would always be there for him because I understood about his background. And so, of course, the time after that, just it wasn't very good at all. It was seriously traumatic. Uh, it was heartbreaking. And I had gone through so many changes within myself, and the biggest was my personality was actually changing, and my friends and family did notice that, and um, they never said anything to me about it though. Uh, so I just persevered. Silly, very stupid of me to persevere. Well, that's what I thought at the time. I don't see myself as stupid now. I see myself as I am that compassionate and empathic person. I have a heart that is full of love and concern and care for people that I care about. But in the June last year, things came to a seriously crashing halt. And um, he found himself a new source. I knew that something was going on by this time. I'll just backtrack for a second. Uh, in the November prior, in 2022, we'd had a huge argument that he had instigated. I don't still to this day do not know what it was about. I have no clue. He was ranting, and I had had enough of this kind of behavior of the anger that he was expressing towards me. I knew at that point that I didn't deserve, and I had already made attempts in the few times prior to that to actually sort of try and reason with him. You can't reason with a narcissist. I will say that right now. Yes, I know. I know you can't. Um, but I did try, and but this particular time in the November, it it was the worst thing I could have done. The absolute worst thing. His retaliation back to me was physically abusive. So I not only had the emotional and mental abuse, I had physical abuse, and that was the deal breaker there, right there. That it was like the divine or God or whatever higher source there is up there looking over at us, looking out for us, had smacked me with a sledgehammer. It's like, listen now, you know. And so I had began to detach, probably uh, up to about a year prior to June last year. I had slowly started detaching from him because distancing myself emotionally from him, because I was becoming quite fed up and lost and tired and didn't know what else to do. I had tried to get him to leave, and he wouldn't. He became very intimidating, controlling, and so intimidating that at times I was fearful that I would never be able to um, escape what I had got myself into. So by the June, it had become apparent to me that he was up to something. He had become far more secretive. He had spent nights and days away, which for me was good because he wasn't around. But at the same time, uh, it made me angry because when he come home, he would walk in with absolute disgusting attitude. He would act as if the house was his and everything in it was his when I paid the rent and everything in the house was mine. And, apart from his belongings, everything else in the house was mine. And he just would walk in like I was the intruder and that this was his home. And that made me angry. And um, and I knew that he was up to something, and it finally came out. He had found himself a new source, come home and said that he was in a relationship, and that he would move his stuff out when he was good and ready. And I quite quickly told him, no, you'll get your stuff out as soon as possible. You're going. That's it. We're done. And that happened in the June, but it also happened with a few more very, very heated moments that had me shaking, and I wouldn't say terrified, but I was certainly extremely worried. When he did leave, I was faced with so much anger and hatred and regret, guilt towards him and myself. And I knew that I had to pull myself out of this horrible feeling that I was feeling at the time. But having borderline personality disorder, I find it difficult um, discerning what emotions I'm feeling and why I'm feeling them. And so it's really quite difficult for me to do that. But by the end of July, I was um, starting to feel just a little calmer, starting to um, come to terms with what had happened. And um, by August, I was well and truly in isolation, or I'd been in isolation pretty much since he left. One, because he lives in the next suburb, and all his friends live around and sort of close by, and I didn't want to bump into anyone. I was so afraid of bumping into people, and having his friends um, abusing me for abandoning him and for pushing him through such emotional hardship, which Um, yes, in a narcissistic way, he probably was feeling emotionally drained and worn out, but that that's not, in a positive. It's not. It was all about him, and I was the big bad person, and I knew that that's what he'd been saying to everybody. I had actually heard it in my own home prior to all this happening. I had actually heard conversations he'd had, and I was just fearful of bumping into people that I didn't want to speak to. I cut myself off from everyone, apart from my two children and a very small handful of friends that I do have, who were there for me when I needed them. But pretty much I went through this healing on my own. I had professional help before he had left, but not since not since June. I've done this on my own. Um, Isolation was really, really important for me because it gave me the opportunity to have a quiet space where I felt safe and where I could reflect and work out all the things that were going on inside me. And I from that I came to the realization that this all triggered me so badly, not only because it just is outright abuse, but also because I had grown up in an abusive home from a very, very early age, from toddler. And so I had inner child wounding that I needed to address, and that was equally as difficult as facing the abuse that I had just lived through. So I was going through what they call the dark night of the soul, and and after after a few weeks of doing that, I had got to a point where I could start um, putting my time and my energy into something productive, apart from like addressing your inner wounds is productive, but I'm talking about something like tangible, productive. And I'm an artist and I'm a creator of um, journals, and I draw and paint, and um, so I began to pick up my paintbrushes and my pencils and um, do art again. I did a couple of very good paintings in that time, and I started to make more journals and pushed myself to create videos for the another channel that I have, and by doing that, I was able to transmute the pain that I was feeling, the devastation, the heartbreak, all the anger and the guilt and everything that I was going through. I was able to transmute that into something beautiful, something that I could see that I had created, and it was wonderful. And even if the art was bad, it was still wonderful. And and I was able to more easily acknowledge the emotions and feelings that I was um, was feeling inside, you know. Um, and I was also able to have some sort of control over the way I felt as well. And that was empowering in itself to be able to feel like I was regaining some control back in my life. I also, um, I don't mean to trigger anyone with any of this, what some of the stuff that I'm going to say from here on in. That's it's triggering you is not my intention. Um, we all um, have our own traumatic experiences, and how we feel as a result of those experiences is very real, and nobody should be diminishing those feelings. You have every right to feel the way you feel. And at the same time, though, my way of thinking and my way of dealing with this is going to be so very different to most of you out there who have gone through narcissistic abuse or any form of abuse. Um, so while I was going through all this, I looked at my part. I considered my part in this whole situationship that I was involved in, and what could I have done differently? Did I do things? Did I do things wrong? And I was essentially being accountable for my role in the situation. And I think that's really, really important because it does take two people, and I'm not condoning his behavior, not in the least, absolutely not condoning his behavior, but it does take two. I should have seen the red flags, and if I did, I ignored them. I ignored my intuition. I had ignored my connection to um, my spirit guides, to God, and that's that was one of the reasons why I was feeling so regretful and guilty that I had ignored um, my spirit guides, who have always been there for me in the past. And yeah, I don't know what else to say there. You know, really, I think it was just important for me to acknowledge that I did play a part, and the fact that I didn't have any boundaries. I had no boundaries, none. I allowed him to walk all over me. I could, when I look back at everything now, I can see where I went wrong, and that's been a good lesson for me because I know that I won't do that again in the future. There is absolutely no way I will do that again in the future. Um, so I think it's really important if you are in a similar situation to be able to immerse yourself into something that you once got enjoyment out of, whether it be art or dance or music, if you play an instrument, or if you do gardening, or if you like to go hiking, or anything that you got some sort of joy from, immerse yourself in that. Because while you're doing that particular thing, you are healing. It might not seem like it, but you will be. It is a really important step. Um, the other thing too is, I said before about boundaries. Start thinking about, if you meet someone in the future, make a new friend, or once you do get back out there, because it will take some time for you to trust again to be able to come back out of isolation. But when you do, make sure you've got some boundaries in place so that you are not allowing people to walk all over you and take your power away. And all of this essentially is learning how to love yourself again. You're worthy. We come out of this abusive situations from not just narcissism, but any emotional or physical abuse. We come out of that with so little belief in ourselves. We have no self-worth. There is no value to us. And we need to regain that, because there is value. I am worthy. I'm a good person, and I know that I am. I have a heart that's full of love, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me again. So healing my inner child, and it was paramount. First of all, loving myself, learning to love myself again, was equally as important. And setting boundaries was just as important. There's you can't. I couldn't even say which one I did first, because I think I did all of it all at once, and because it was all important to me. I found a quote. Actually, I didn't find the quote. I was listening to a video just a few days ago, and I've got this quote. I can't remember who said it. Otherwise, I'd give them credit. But it's not from me. Healing isn't just a means to cope with trauma. Healing is the means to empower us so that we can feel joy once again. And that's what we need. We need to be able to feel the happiness that we once had. I lost my husband in 2018, and I he had cancer, so I did have time to come to grips with the fact that he was not going to be with me forever. But and when he passed, I was devastated. Absolutely, my world was ripped apart. But within pretty much 2 years, I had uh, started to feel happy within myself again, enough for me to be able to get on with life. And then I met this narcissist, and well, it all went from there. The friends that I cut off were his friends, and although I got along really well with them, they weren't there for me when I know when they weren't there for me when I needed them. And of course they weren't going to be, because he'd already given them his the fabrication of his reality, of how he sees his life, or how he saw his life with me, which was very different to what it was, like in the beginning. And in between all his outbursts, there were good times, but he has told his friends that the whole time he was living here in my home, it was hell for him. I did everything I possibly could to uh, help instill in him that he was welcome here, that this was his home too, and that he belonged somewhere, and that someone cared about him. The other thing I came to a realization. Well, I don't even know if that's the right word. I because I already knew what background he'd come from, that it was um, very sort of traumatic for him. He's had traumatic relationships, even, and then as a child he'd gone through stuff then, and so I understood that while his behaviour is inexcusable, it's disgusting, it's demoralising and extremely abusive. He is a narcissist because of his own trauma. A narcissist is who they are because of their own trauma. And I suppose having borderline personality disorder, which is a consequence of early childhood trauma, I could understand and empathise. But that doesn't mean to say that I can excuse it. I can't. However, the next step in healing for me, and I think is a really important one, is that I needed to learn to forgive him. And mind you, I would never ever say to his face or anyone he knew that he's forgiven, because he would then think immediately that his behaviour was justified, and his behaviour was not justified. But within myself, I have forgiven him. I need to be able to do that, to be able to open my heart up again, because not everybody is like him. Not everyone is abusive. And I don't want to live in isolation for the rest of my life. And as for his friends, I another reason why I was isolating was because I like I said, I didn't want to bump into anyone. I didn't want to have them say horrible things to me. I couldn't face that. I don't face confrontation very well at all. I'm Cancerian. I just do not like confrontation. Um, and but I did wonder what they thought of me. Is they think badly of me the whole time that they were laughing with me and joking around, and we were and supposedly having fun together. Did they think then that I was a bad person? And I came to the understanding within myself that, you know what, it doesn't really matter what they think. I know what happened, and I know who I am. I know what I am, and I know what I'm capable of. I'm a survivor, not a victim, and I will not play the victim. I will not stay on the pity train. I'm not putting this video out there hoping for comments of pity and sympathy. You can keep those comments. You do not put them down there, because I don't need it. I don't want it, and I don't need it. I'm strong enough to be able to um, know that I don't. I'm not going to be the victim at all. Um, Throughout the whole time, even though I've got to this point, I need to stress to everyone that, like I said, it can take years for someone to get over narcissism to the point where they can feel like a whole valued person once again. And it might seem like to you that it hasn't taken me very long. But like I said, I was detaching from him for several months prior to him leaving. And but despite that, I did agonize over how wrong and unfair the whole situation was. I questioned why. I ranted and raved at the universe, at God, letting me down, putting me through that. And I regretted not having boundaries and um, allowing myself to go through that. Rediscovering that I am a worthy person, and that I'm a loving person, and that I would one day make someone a good partner again. That I'm a good friend. I'm a mum. I love my children. I would be there for them, for whatever I can. If it's within my power, I'll do it. And finding my light, my inner light, it has been my first and foremost priority. And I believe that life is good for me now. I believe that almost every day I feel joy. I'm happy. I have a purpose, and my purpose is to create, art. It's to express myself and to help others if I can. I will always be there for people if I possibly can. And that's so. If anyone does get all the way through this video and you think I've missed out something, or maybe there's a strategy that you've followed through and it has been helpful for you, please comment that below for anyone else who comes along who might need that information. And yeah, the moon picture that I've painted is um, I'm ruled by the moon, so I love painting the moon. And I've put the halo around it. It's got that lunar halo. So it's very much like the flower moon that we had. And in tarot, the moon card signifies everything that is hidden. There's things that we cannot see. That doesn't mean that they're not there. And the sun card is clarity, and it's joy and things coming out into the open, and it's sunshine. And so the glow around the lunar glow to me is like that light. I know that it's not from the sun necessarily, it's actually the moon glow, but I find that for me there's a bit of a connection there, and that's why I've done the painting. And the quote that I've put on that moon painting, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but I'll read it out to you. It's by Shristi Sinha. Like the moon, half of my soul will always remain dark. And I did do a meditation on that, and I got a little bit of a download. With dark, there is always light, and not always at the same time that we can see. However, it is never far away. The light does appear. There's a balance, unwavering. Truth and clarity is only hidden for a short time. And after my meditation, I thought, well, I think we need the dark to reflect and heal our inner wounds, so that in the light we can feel our sense of joy, nurture it, and learn to believe we can have joy. In fact, it is our right. It is our right to feel worthy, valued, and to live a life of joy. So, with this channel and the art that I will be creating, not just in my journal but on canvas, it expresses my innermost emotions and feelings and my innermost thoughts about my world and the world as a whole. They're quite spiritual, and I'm hoping that through my creating art on the channel that I can offer some support for people. Excuse me. In some way. And yeah, I guess that's it. We're coming to the end of this video pretty soon. I'm on the next video. I'll be doing some form of art, but it won't be in the art journal next time. It'll be an art piece that I'll be doing, and I'm not sure what the medium will be. It might be watercolor. I don't know. We'll see. I just would like to say thank you for listening to this video, and please comment below, and I'm wishing everyone happiness, good health, and peaceful blessings, and sending out thoughts of healing for all of you. And I'm thinking of, even though I don't know you, but as a collective, yeah, thinking of you all with much love and until the next video, which will be in a few days' time. Until then, bye for now.